Let's cross to South Australia now and catch up with the Liberal Senator for that great state, Anne Ruston. Good to talk to you, Anne. I just want to pick up on that point that I raised with Cameron Milner. Tanya Plibersek picking up water and environment. She'll be focusing on Murray Darling water arrangements. You know the Riverland well. It's where you grew up. And you know those issues in South Australia better than most. Would you be concerned about a socialist left Labor minister who lives in the inner city of Sydney trying to deal with the water issues of the Murray-Darling? Do you think South Australia could lose out?
Well, certainly when I heard that Tanya Plibersek had got water, it did send a bit of a shiver down my spine because, I mean, the complexities of the issues that rural and regional Australia face in the Murray-Darling Basin about making sure that we've got that great river system sustainably operating for the benefit of everybody, and that includes our farmers and our river communities, really does require somebody with a great understanding of actually what happens in rural and regional Australia. And I mean, obviously the Labor Party have a bit of a shortage of representation when it comes to rural and regional Australia. But, you know, to put the member for the inner city electorate of Sydney in charge of our national rural water policy does seem to me perhaps a reflection of how much they really care about it, or maybe all they care about is the political and ideological outcomes that will make their people in the city happy without any regard whatsoever about the impacts it's going to have on our river communities. And maybe they might think about where their food that they're eating for dinner tonight comes from when they make these decisions.
Would you offer to take Tanya Plibersek on a bit of a guided tour around South Australia's Riverland and the Sunraysia area of Victoria and New South Wales and show her what happens with all that water?
Look, absolutely, and I think every river community right across the whole of the Murray-Darling Basin should be extending that invitation to Tanya to make sure that she gets out there and she sees the extraordinary importance and value of these communities, and that making decisions a long, long way away from where the action's happening is really fraught with danger. So I hope she gets out there and has a really good look at the importance of this area, because it is the food bowl of Australia. It's it produces so many of our exports, so it has a major impact on our balance of trade. I mean, the Murray-Darling Basin is one of the jewels of Australia's economy, and I hope that she uses her opportunity as the water minister to make sure that everybody benefits from it, and it's not just pandering to the inner city Greens and Teals.
So, Anne Ruston, during the election campaign, the Teals, the Greens, some on the Labor Party said that the coalition wasn't really committed to climate action, wasn't really committed to net zero by 2050. The Deputy Prime Minister was saying that the government was committed to net zero by 2050, but Barnaby Joyce now has backflipped. He said he never believed in that target. He just went along with the crowd and he won't be supporting it now. How much damage does that do to the coalition and your credibility on this issue?
Well, look, I think every Australian should be committed to a clean energy future, and every Australian should be seeking for us to transition to net zero, and we've made a commitment as the coalition government, and I absolutely am committed to doing what I can do in whatever role I play into the future around making sure that we do meet that obligation and that commitment we made to the Australian public. But, to do it in such a way that, means that, we push up energy prices, that we can completely destroy our economy, we just destroy small business, we destroy large business, and we absolutely, wreak havoc across the Australian economy, would be completely irresponsible. And that was why we always had a plan to get there by technology and not taxes. And, it's now up to the current government to make sure that their policies don't see, pensioners not turning their heating on in winter because they're too scared of their power bills, that they don't see small business go broke because they simply can't afford their power bills.
Well, that's happening now, and obviously
ideological pursuit for a number.
But obviously the price increases we're seeing now were set in train before the change of government. So obviously there's an energy crisis approaching anyway. But the point isn't about net zero. We can all aspire to net zero sometime. It's inevitable really sometime. The point is about the 2050 target. Are you going to remain committed to the 2050 target?
Well, we're absolutely committed to the 2050 target because we totally believe that technology provides us with that solution. And it's not just that technology is providing a solution to a clean energy future. The opportunity for the Australian economy, for jobs and the development of new businesses, businesses with great jobs going into the future that is offered by the development of renewable energy technologies, I think is something that is a great opportunity for Australia.
The development of technologies you mentioned, that's the problem, is all the expert analysis says that net zero by 2050 is not achievable with current technology unless you were to go down the nuclear route.
Well, we've certainly made, when we were in government, we made massive commitments, $20 billion towards investments in developing new technologies. I mean, if you only have to look back a few years in so many areas and realise that, what you didn't know then, which is just a reality now. I mean, if you look at the year 2000, and who would have thought that we'd be sitting here and, our mobile phones have got the kind of technology that you can just about run the world on. So I'm absolutely optimistic about the future for renewable energy technology, but we need to do it in a sensible approach because, as I said, we don't want to be destroying businesses. We don't want to be seeing power prices going up. We need to continually be putting downward pressure on because there are the factors that are going to impact on energy prices. The war in the Ukraine is a classic example that we don't have any control over, but we do have control over what we do here in Australia, and that's why we have to have a very sensible approach.
Just briefly, your Liberal colleagues in the South Australian State Parliament voted in favour in support of a motion declaring a climate emergency in South Australia. Is that hysterical nonsense?
Well, I must say that when I saw that is what they had done yesterday, I was somewhat surprised, but I haven't had a chance to actually have a look at the detail of what was actually before them because I understand there were a number of amendments. But I think it was. Yeah, I was certainly surprised when I heard that that's what had happened.
Well, we've got to be a bit more sober, don't we? We can't be telling kids and the rest of the community that there's an emergency now. I think, people are living reasonably well in South Australia as we speak, aren't they?
Well, I mean, we've certainly been through our fair share of trials and tribulations, as you'd be well aware, Chris, when, we did have that ridiculous pursuit of renewable energy under the previous Labor government, where we saw we had a storm and all of a sudden, many people in rural and regional Australia had 4, 5 and 6 days without power. And then that was at the point in time when we realised that some of the things that were happening here were causing massive damage to our economy. But look, yes, absolutely, people here in South Australia have had the benefit of good policies under the Marshall government for the last 4 years. But this idea that you are going to go hell-bent on an ideological pursuit, we can't pursue ideology. We have to pursue practical and real actions that deliver something, real change on the ground. And so, I'd be calling for calm for everybody and looking at ways that we can actually achieve the outcomes that we want, but not doing damage along the way in the pursuit of trying to get a headline to try and win a vote. Actually think about what the consequences are on the ground.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us, Senator. Appreciate your time.